Ross, one thing I'm interested in doing now, obviously, as we're leading up to the NFL draft, I mean, we got to talk about this mock draft we're about to do together. We're going to see maybe how accurate we are, in a week and a half from now.
Yeah, let's really go ahead and plant our flags so that we can look back and see just how many things we got right and just how many things we got wrong about the NFL draft. So Cody and I thought it'd be a lot of fun, especially with the Ultimate Mock Draft 2021 podcast releasing tomorrow. And of course, the NFL draft just right around the corner to go ahead and do a first round mock draft. So we're going to be using the mock draft simulator with our friends over at the Draft Network. And we're going to run through and take a look at this first round and work on each of the selections together. So let's go ahead and start off here. I should have logged into my my premium account, but you know what? That's okay. That's all right. We are here. So we're going to start off, of course, with the Jacksonville Jaguars up at the top of this here on our Locked On NFL Sunday mock draft. Cody, this is exactly what we expect, right?
Well, I think that there's some concerns about Trevor Lawrence. He doesn't really like football, right? He's not just a football guy.
Like he's really into it. You know what I'm saying?
So, I mean, I would be completely shocked if Jacksonville actually drafted him. No, I think this is easily the consensus pick. And I imagine Jacksonville, just for the fun of it, is going to wait a little, a few minutes before they even do it. I can see it already happening.
They're taking all 12 off the clock. I'm calling it right now. They're taking all 12 off
That should be a prop bet for sure.
It is going to come all the way. And then it's going to say the pick is in, and then we're going to wait another 5 minutes for Goodell to walk to the podium. To booze, probably, because there will be fans in attendance, some 3,000 fans, vaccinated fans, medical workers, a lot of good stuff going on.
Love it.
Up next, we've got the New York Jets. This one also already feels like it's in the bag here. Zach Wilson, quarterback out of BYU.
One of the worst kept secrets in the NFL for sure. Joe Douglas has even said it. They're going to go with Zach Wilson.
Absolutely. Now, I want to be clear here. Justin Fields is my quarterback 2, but as we've discussed here on the show, quarterback 2 and second quarterback drafted are not always equal because of things like team fit, right? So now as we get to pick number 3 here with the San Francisco 49ers, Brian Peacock, the last time that he joined us after this big trade happened where San Francisco moved up to 3, told us exactly who he believes it's going to be. Where do you go with pick 3 here?
My stance hasn't changed. I think that it's going to be Justin Fields outside of all the Mac Jones smokescreen. I think Fields is obviously the easy selection here for San Francisco, and obviously the links and the relationships with the QB collective. I mean, I would be earth-shatteringly shocked, Ross, if Justin Fields is not a 49er. So for me, it's going to be Fields to San Francisco.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Let's go ahead and knock that one out. Whoever it is that has run the Mac Jones to 49ers narrative needs to be like a politician or a politician's PR person, because they did a phenomenal job here throughout the draft season. All right, now we get to pick 4. We're not going to do any trades or anything in this draft. We're just going to go straight up here. So as we get to pick 4 here, what do we think about? Oh, and look, our guy here, Joe Tinson, on the same page as this. Niners will probably take Fields. We completely agree. So pick 4 here, Atlanta Falcons. Where are you going?
This is a tough one because there's a split. I mean, obviously, when you look at Terry Fontenot, he wants a quarterback of the future, but when you look at the head coaching situation, they're not necessarily looking at that. So it doesn't seem like they're on the same page. I know Aaron Freeman would probably select best player available. For me, I can see a team maybe trading up to 4 because I know that there are some teams that want Trey Lance. Denver could be one of those teams, but I don't think that's going to be the case. For me, I think they're going to go best player available. I think that they still believe that Matt Ryan has 2 good years of football left in Atlanta, at least, right? He's still playing at an elite level. I think they're going to surround, not only just Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones with a good player, but they're going to add Kyle Pitts to the mix as well. Pitts would be my selection here.
I completely agree. Kyle Pitts is the easy selection here. I hate it. I hate it as the person that covers the New Orleans Saints and talks about, how are they going to match up with Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones? But you know what? I'm going to let Sean Payton and them deal with that. I'm going to sit back and be football fan for a moment and say Kyle Pitts is the absolute selection here. Now, here has been a very interesting conversation. The Cincinnati Bengals at 5. Do they go with protecting Joe Burrow, or do they give him another option to throw to? It's the offensive tackle conversation, Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater. It's the wide receiver conversation, Jamar Chase, or one of the other top 3 running wide receivers who's the first receiver off the board. A lot of narratives built into this one. I'll tell you now, I tend to lean to Penei Sewell. and giving the offensive line the protection that it needs. As much, y'all know I'm LSU. I'm LSU all the way. And I would love to see both Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase back throwing to one another, or I guess Joe Burrow throwing to Jamar Chase. I don't want to see it the other way around, but I pass up that temptation to go with the safer pick here in Penei Sewell. What do you think about this?
Well, not to mention Cincinnati just reunited Joe Burrow with Thaddeus Moss. So there you go. You got connection there. If the Bengals, in my opinion, if Cincinnati Bengals want to be a franchise that isn't irrelevant again, they're going to make sure that Joe Burrow is protected. Now, yes, I mean, the thought prospect of having Joe Burrow throw to Jamar Chase is exciting, but Joe Burrow can't throw to Jamar Chase from the hospital bed because of all the shots that he takes. Right. You need a guy that can come in and play tackle. And Penei Sewell this week, I mean, Ian Rappaport had reported that he's also learning. He's been working at right tackle this offseason in his training. So he's prepared to go to any team where he's either going to play left or right tackle. He's okay with both. I'm going with Penei Sewell as well. He's, in my opinion, the best tackle in this year's draft class, and he's going to be turning a lot of heads. I mean, I've watched him at Oregon. He is a stud.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, too, if it wasn't for Trevor Lawrence, Penei Sewell would be the best player in this draft, regardless of position. The dude is a mauler. Let's go pick 6 here. Our good friend Kyle Krabs, host of Locked On Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins on the clock. Feels like a pass catcher early for these guys. Jamar Chase best on the board, but then do they go to the Alabama connection for Tua Tagovailoa and go with either Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle?
I mean, some of the talk and some of the reports have circulated around giving Tua a wide receiver he's got chemistry with, he's got familiarity with. And when you look at the difference between Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith, I mean, those are two very talented players. I think they're going to go with the Bama connection here. It makes sense, but which player do they go with? In my opinion, I think that they're going to go with Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen Waddle is going to go. Yeah. So as intriguing as Devonta Smith is, I mean, obviously for Heisman, I think that with the concerns that are being leaked out about his size, I know NFL executives for the most part aren't concerned about it, but Jalen Waddle is probably a more surefire pick at this point. And for him, he's going to be fully healthy, which is great. So I think this is the easy selection for them.
Let's get it. I am a big fan of that too. Jamar Chase is my wide receiver 1, but again, that doesn't always correlate to first wide receiver off the board. Let's go now. Pick number 7, Detroit Lions. For me, this feels like this is actually pretty tough because I kind of want to lean to Rashawn Slater here for them, but does putting Jamar Chase back where they used to have Kenny Golladay, is that too much to pass up?
It's super hard because they need to add wide receiver value to their, obviously to a rebuilding team. Now, Jared Goff, I mean, who's he throwing to right now? Right. So for me, I look at it, Jamar Chase, very, very talented wide receiver. You know it from watching LSU. He is an alpha male. He's going to be a great blocking wide receiver. He's going to be that position guy that's going to go up and climb the ladder to get the ball at the top of it. To be honest with you, I think that Jamar Chase, I would be shocked if it's not Jamar Chase, but I can also see the angle as you were alluding to in terms of, why not offensive line help? Because Jared Goff, he's also going to need to be kept upright as well. But I think they probably have better offensive line depth right now than they do wide receiver depth. So Jamar Chase would be the sexy pick here.
Yeah, well, let's go with the sexy pick. Let's have some fun. It's not entirely the reverse situation of what we were or the reverse of the logic we were talking about with Cincinnati, because Cincinnati's offensive line is atrocious, while at least Detroit's is serviceable. And as you mentioned, the depth is there. But this really lines everything up for everything we discussed when it came to the Carolina Panthers. Do they go offensive lineman where Rashawn Slater makes the most sense as that top offensive lineman remaining? Or do they grab the backup plan at quarterback and then have themselves ready just in case Sam Darnold doesn't pan out?
Yeah, this is a tough one because the board right here is kind of split. You think about Trey Lance and the fact that, he's dropped so far to this point in our mock draft. I think it bodes well in terms of those teams. This is where maybe Carolina is going to receive some trade calls. The New England Patriots, the Washington football team. This is where they probably pick up the phone and say, hey, how much do you guys want to stay at pick number 8? But if we're going to go on the basis of them staying put here at pick number 8, I think they're going to go offensive tackle. I think Rashawn Slater is probably the best option for them because they do need somebody to protect Sam Darnold. They do have Christian McCaffrey back. They have talent at the wide receiver position. They need to be able to keep that, whoever's at quarterback, if it's Sam Darnold, somebody else upright. And I think that Rashawn Slater probably makes the most sense.
Let's do it. So this puts your Denver Broncos in a very interesting situation. You want to go cornerback, you have every option available. You want to go quarterback, and you mentioned Trey Lance as a possible move-up option for some of these teams at 4. Does Trey Lance at 9 tempt you enough to draft a quarterback?
Easily, for me,
Ooh.
and here's the reason why, right? Denver this
Mhm.
offseason, they added cornerbacks. They had a Kyle Fuller,
They did.
Ronald Darby. Yes, Kyle Fuller's on a 1-year deal, but I think this is a deep cornerback class enough to where you can wait till round number 2 to go with a cornerback. There's still some really good talent available for the Broncos here. They're unsure about what Drew Lock can be, right? And so more than likely, I think they're going to go with the quarterback route. George Payton has done a lot of backyard scouting when he was in Minnesota, so he watched a lot of Trey Lance, even though he's only played 17 college games. I think that Trey Lance is the pick here for the Broncos if he is available here at 9.
Let's do it. There you go. Nice and simple. All right, pick number 10. This one feels nice and simple as well.
Yes.
They need cornerback help. Patrick Surtain's the top corner on the market. The Alabama Cowboys connection is there. Any objections?
No, not really. I mean, you can make an argument between Surtain and J.C. Horn, but man, I think that Surtain and probably because the ties that you mentioned are obviously the Dallas connection. I think it probably makes the most sense. I know our guys over at Locked On Cowboys have talked about Patrick Surtain quite a bit, so we'll go there. Marcus Mosher in the chat, he's already saying Cowboys, and we picked up Patrick Surtain. So Marcus, let us know what you thought about that selection in the comment section.
Hope you liked it. If not, we'll see you next Sunday. You can come through and let us know. All right, let's go to the New York Giants. New York Giants in a really interesting spot here. We see their top need being edge. Are there any edge rushers that are really viable this early in the draft? To me, the only one is Jalen Phillips out of Miami, but could they end up going with maybe a Micah Parsons or potentially even helping to shore up more cornerback depth themselves?
Ooh, this is a tough one because there's three picks here that I think are the most appealing. I think J.C. Horn is very appealing, but I also think Micah Parsons for them at linebacker. Yeah. Last year, I was really impressed. I mean, the New York Giants weren't that bad of a defensive team last season, contrary to the narrative. Yes, they struggled, but they had a pretty solid defense, and James Bradbury is one of those players that really elevated them at cornerback. I think that they need some inside linebacker help, and I think that Micah Parsons probably is going to be the best fit for them. My selection for them, Ross, would be Micah Parsons.
All right, let's go ahead and do it. Micah Parsons does come with, just to make sure that we cover it. Micah Parsons right now actively in the midst of character concern questions and things like that. But we've also heard from some trusty folks like Matt Miller and others that maybe this is a little bit more blown out of proportion over on the side that's talking about it as opposed to the side that's talking about it, if that makes sense. All right, let's go to pick 12 here. We visited with the guys who Locked On Eagles to trade back to 12, what they might be looking at. For me, this is Devonta Smith, the wide receiver out of Alabama.
Easily. I mean, I didn't have to say anything. That's the penciled in selection. Jalen Hurts is going to have some fun here.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's intriguing. But the Chargers being on the clock here is interesting because you factor in the offseason they've had a new head coach, a defensive-minded head coach. That can maybe go against you a little bit because, Brandon Staley's rise has been super fast, right? And I think a lot of people get caught up on that hype. I don't think that they need a lot of help right now on defense. Edge, maybe with Melvin Ingram still being a free agent, maybe they do need some edge help here. But to be honest with you, I could see them going with some offensive line help because Justin Herbert needs to be protected. They go and they add Corey Linsley in free agency at the center position. That's great. But in a division where you play against Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and various other pass rushers this season on your schedule, you need to protect Justin Herbert. He's got the skill guys to do it. I think they got to go offensive tackle here. And Darisaw obviously makes the most sense out of Virginia Tech. There's also some other prospects maybe they could take a look at. But I'd be very shocked if it was anybody else at this point.
Can I make one suggestion around this? I do think that it's offensive linemen, but it's very hard for me to pass up the symmetry of Elijah Vera Tucker going from USC to the Los Angeles Chargers.
That California connection too is there. So, I mean, I could see that too. And the thing about him is he might be, I think, versatile enough to be able to, if they need him to play another position, they can definitely do that. So I think between Darisaw and him, I think Vera Tucker actually adds more value to what the Chargers want to do in terms of their offensive line and their scheme. I would be okay with that selection.
Let's do that. Darisaw is the better tackle in my opinion, particularly better left tackle. But I just feel like with what needs Los Angeles has ahead of them, having that versatility is definitely going to be something very, very helpful for them. All right, now we've got pick 14 here with the Minnesota Vikings. They can go a lot of different routes here as well. Corner, of course, is a big need for them. J.C. Horn sitting there primed at pick 14 if that's where they want to go. They could also go edge with Jalen Phillips, who I think, again, is the better edge rusher in this class in terms of this early within the top 15. They could also go offensive line if they wanted too, Christian Darrisaw, or a little bit tough for me to go with an interior offensive lineman this early in the draft. So if they wanted to shore up the offensive line elsewhere, they could go with Darrisaw here.
Well, and obviously with the situation involving Jeff Gladney, that's going to really impact their cornerback depth. The best we talk about best player available, it is J.C. Horn at this point. And we don't know what the outcome is going to be. Obviously, the NFL's got a firm stance and policy against domestic violence. So Gladney's not going to be a part of what they're going to be firmer at the beginning. Yeah. It could be, yes, it absolutely could be firmer. But he's probably going to be with that, not with the team for a little bit of time. And J.C. Horn, no character concerns. He's a hardworking guy. He's probably, in my opinion, arguably the best cornerback in this year's draft class.
CB1, baby.
J.C. Horn is my guy here.
Let's do it. And I got to tell you, J.C. Horn's on the board at 14. Minnesota's phone is ringing off the hook. Off the hook. All right, pick number 15 here. The New England Patriots. Do they do it? Do they go with Mac Jones, quarterback out of Alabama?
I don't think so. But you know what?
I love it.
I don't know. I mean, that's tough.
Let's throw a wrench.
For me, we could do it. We could absolutely set Twitter on fire, Patriots fans. If there's anybody watching this, we should have somebody tweet out that in our mock draft here, we had them select Mac Jones. But we did talk about it, Ross. We talked about New England maybe being one of those teams that's going to probably pick up the phone and say, hey, Carolina or Atlanta at 4, like, hey, what do you want in us to be able, where are you leaning? We want to move up to your pick. Why not? Why not Mac Jones? I mean, he's getting all that talk about San Francisco. I mean, Bill Belichick, he's a cerebral guy. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks in this year's draft. There is some character concerns, obviously, from some of the things that he's done that not many people are talking about. Why not go with Mac Jones to New England? I'm okay with that. I want to set the world on fire today.
Yeah, we could do it. The other option here, and I already know somebody that's in the chat would be very mad about this, but we could go Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah as well.
Stud. He's a freaking heat-seeking missile, Ross. And I tell you what, in his 2 seasons of being able to just play at Notre Dame, he stands out like a sore thumb because he can not only just play, you could send him off the edge, but he can play in the slot. He can play that box linebacker, off-ball coverage. He's got that safety linebacker hybrid style. Yeah. And we know Bill Belichick. He loves that. Matt Patricia's back into the fold, obviously. So they do need that. Even though that. Yeah. So you have the whole Kyle Van Noy situation still, but yeah. Yeah,
you have that. You've also got Kyle Duggar that's already there who plays a little bit of that hybrid role. Dante Hightower coming back. Patrick Chung has returned. So some shifting around in that defense. Could they look to add the young talent of a Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah as opposed to going with Mac Jones? I do feel like, however, we got to go Mac Jones here because you go with the quarterback, right?
Yes, you do. And I think that for Mac Jones, he maybe fits the style, maybe what the New England Patriots want to do. How long is Bill going to be in New England? How long is Josh McDaniels? I feel like they got lifetime contracts if they wanted to. So
yeah,
maybe. I think that would probably be the best selection. I want to set the world on fire today, though. We'll go with Mac Jones.
Yeah, let's get it. Next up, we've got the Arizona Cardinals. We heard them. They told us already that it's going to be cornerback. That quarterback first 2 rounds makes perfect sense to them. Best remaining cornerback, on the list here is Greg Newsome. But of course, we have several other corners that are a part of this class. A dropping Caleb Farley, whose stock is dropping because of injury and things like that we've seen with him. Offseason surgery, and then Eric Stokes out of Georgia as well with elite speed. But do we think that they go with the safer bet in Northwestern's Greg Newsome, or do they take the risk and roll the dice with Caleb Farley, who's a phenomenal talent and just has the health concerns?
I tell you what, I like Greg Newsome a lot. I think he's one of the most underrated cornerbacks in this year's class. It's not being talked about enough because you're hearing the talks about J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, Caleb Farley. Right. No one's talking about Greg Newsome. But when I look at the NFC West and I look at the fact that you have to go against Tyler Lockett, you have to go against DK Metcalf, and this is a big if Caleb Farley can be who we all think that he can be when he is healthy, I think he gives you the best option of being able to match up against DK Metcalf and Lockett because he can cover the bigger guys. He can cover the smaller guys. He is that big of an athlete where he can add that value to your defense. Arizona needs it. I'm taking the risk here. Like for me personally, right. I would say they would be Caleb Farley here.
Let's do it.
I think this is as far as he drops.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a floor to that drop at some point. And if it's not 16, then it's certainly very soon after, because the guy is an incredible talent. All right, now we have the Las Vegas Raiders. There are 2 quintessential Raiders selections on the board right now. I would even say 3. Christian Darrisaw feels like a Raider. The guy plays like a Raider. He is mean as hell on the field. He plays like a Raider. Tevin Jenkins, same thing. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. All 3 of those make perfect sense to me at the Raiders. Which one makes the most sense to you?
Well, I mean, with their overhaul in the offensive line, you have to really wonder. That's probably going to be their selection. Mike Mayock, we know some of the decisions they've made this offseason, I'm like, I don't know what the hell they're thinking. But God, it's tough between them. Yes, I still feel like they could get a linebacker. This is a really good linebacker class this year, too. Even in round number 2, you can get a really good value pick there. So for me, I feel like they got to go offensive line. When we talk about Darrisaw, yes, you even talk about Tevin Jenkins. I think Tevin Jenkins probably, I don't know. I feel like Darrisaw is going to drop a little bit. I feel like Jenkins probably might be the most appealing fit. But, Ross, I'm going to let you pick this one.
We'll go with Tevin Jenkins because I think that the common selection here is to go with Christian Darrisaw. So let's explore a different scenario here to where Christian Darrisaw continues to fall, and we'll see where he goes, because there's a couple of spots to where Christian Darrisaw plugs right in on many of the teams remaining that need an offensive lineman and would be an absolute phenom on their line with their play style. So let's go Tevin Jenkins and explore the scenario a bit.
I can't wait to see how accurate we are. What if we have the most accurate mock draft in the world? Right?
Without trades, it's hard to get super accurate. But you know what? Maybe we land the sequence. You know what I mean? The sequence of players. So we'll keep it. We'll come back and we'll have a good chuckle with ourselves after the NFL draft for sure.
Oh, this one looks easy.
Yeah. Where are you going with it? This is the Miami Dolphins at pick 18.
I'm feeling Jalen Phillips here. You know, the Miami connection, the Florida connection, you need that. And I think for Brian Flores, the defensive focus that he has, I think Jalen Phillips would be a great pickup. And not to mention, too, you're bringing in a hometown guy. I mean, this is a Miami Dolphins team that's on the upward trend. They're a very exciting young team. Now you add to that defense and you bring in a hometown guy, which a lot of fans already love and have familiarity with. I think Jalen Phillips probably makes the most sense here.
Sell the jerseys, baby. Sell the jerseys. I'm all about it. On to pick number 19 here. More than halfway through our first round mock draft here on Locked On NFL Sunday. Thanks to everybody who has joined along and who has been participating everything with us as well. Remember, you can chime in as we go through. We're into pick number 19 here, the Washington football team. We talked a bit about their quarterback situation with them at 19 and standing pat, not able to really address it in terms of the first round, in terms of the top 5 guys off the board, but they could work on protecting whatever the quarterback is that is going to be there, whether it be Ryan Fitzpatrick, Taylor Heineke, or otherwise. Christian Darrisaw is still here. We could also go linebacker for them with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
My question too is, David Harrison, if you're still here in the chat, man, what are you leaning here based on the available board? I think that with that defense, I think with Chase Young and how Washington played last year, if you add a guy like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah to the mix, I mean, that's going to be a pretty damn good defense, right? Because guess who's back in that division? Dak is back.
Dak is back, baby.
And you need to find a way to slow him down. I mean, he was lighting up the NFL before he got hurt. I think with all the weapons that they have, you need to be able to have a guy here. I mean, you can make the argument about Christian Darrisaw here, offensive lineman, and at WWE Timothy says, I think Christian goes here. I think that there's a valid point to that. But outside of that, it's hard to ignore Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and that defense.
Yeah. I think I lean toward Christian Darrisaw here. I think Christian Darrisaw maybe the reason why I lean to Christian Darrisaw here is the same reason why we took Mac Jones earlier, right? You choose the quarterback. And so it's the quarterback, it's the person that protects the quarterback, then it's the person that attacks the quarterback. And attacking the quarterback, Kwity Paye, Azeez Ojulari, these guys a little bit. This defensive line does that already. Defensive line already does it. If you're not going to be able to address the quarterback, you address protecting the quarterback. So for me, it's Christian Darrisaw here.
I'm okay with that too.
That work for you?
Because you could still get a really good linebacker in round 2 if you're Washington. So
absolutely.
Yes.
All right, Christian Darrisaw. And then we get to the Chicago Bears throw a dart, man. Just throw a dart, you know. Where should we go here for the poor Chicago Bears and our poor friend Lauren Cox?
Well, you know, they got rid of Kyle Fuller because of cap casualty, so they need cornerback help. Greg Newsome is available. I'm telling you.
A combination of Greg Newsome and Jalen Johnson going into his second season. I'm a huge fan of that. Let's do it.
I really do like it. And they're going with the Vic Fangio style of defense. So
that's right.
Greg Newsome, he's the pick.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that for certain. I'm a Mike Stan account. Appreciate you coming through on that, Mike. Now we get to the Indianapolis Colts at pick 21. Offensive line, corner, wide receiver, their top 3 needs. This one's a really interesting one. I feel like this is a trade back opportunity for the Indianapolis Colts. But if we have to sit here and pick, where do you go?
Well, it's really tough. We look at the top offensive linemen in this year's draft class. They're all gone for the most part. I don't think you want to gamble on some of these guys that are, questionable round 1, round 2 type players. Cornerback, we most of the good cornerbacks, you still have on the board Eric Stokes from Georgia.
Right.
Wide receiver, I mean, you got Michael Pittman coming back. You also, T.Y. Hilton's back. I don't think they go there necessarily. So for them, I mean, I can see the trade back. Why not go with this is tough. Why not go with a guy? I mean, Rashad Bateman's obviously got a lot of appeal too. I'm not opposed to going wide receiver, but who are the offensive linemen? What's the next available offensive tackle down the board? Alex Leatherwood, Alabama. Yes. I would go with Leatherwood here because he's the best remaining offensive tackle prospect. Obviously, they had a retirement on the offensive line this year at the tackle position. And Carson Wentz, a guy who's absolutely been traumatized by getting hit and by bad offensive line play. You got to get a guy to maybe be that anchor for him for the next 4 to 5 years. Depends on how long he wants to play in the NFL. I think Leatherwood's a good selection here.
Let's go with Alex Leatherwood. I do think that it has to be addressing the offensive line. Samuel Cosmi is another really good option. Super, super, super athletic at his size as well. I think either one of those guys could have it. But when it comes down to the Indianapolis Colts, I don't really think about athletic offensive linemen. I think about the mauler types. And so I think Alex Leatherwood fits better there. Especially
with Quentin Nelson on your offensive line. You're going to have that attitude in that O-line room. So I think that's the pick.
Excellent. So now we get to the Tennessee Titans, who have a need at cornerback, and have a need at wide receiver too. For me, Rashad Bateman feels like the first name that jumps to mind here, especially after losing Corey Davis, losing Adam Humphries. They've lost some of these targets out there. You're looking for somebody to pair up with AJ Brown, who's been absolutely phenomenal. Rashad Bateman, 6 foot, right around 200 pounds, has speed, has long speed, does a lot of things well. I really like Rashad Bateman as a fit for these guys.
I do too. I really do. And then Jared, yes, once we recap our draft, we'll go through and show it, all the selections that we made.
Absolutely. Good question, Jared. Thank you.
They're back. They are back on the clock. The New York Jets.
Those New York Jets.
They don't have to reach.
Just one pick away from pairing up a shiny new quarterback with a shiny new wide receiver, although it can still be done. But they do have a lot of other places that they could go. I mean, corner looks like, according to Draft Network, being their top need. Eric Stokes is still here. Tyson Campbell right below as well. Edge rushers, Kwity Paye, Azeez Ojulari still there if they want to go ahead and bolster up this defense a little bit.
I mean, the fact that Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is still available would be very shocking to me. But then also I look at they need edge help. Kwity Paye is a really good player. Azeez Ojulari is a really good player as well. I'm leaning more edge here than I am linebacker. So I don't know about you, but I'll let you make the pick here.
Let's go edge. I feel like Robert Saleh and his, I think the positionless player approach of San Francisco didn't really fall under Robert Saleh's umbrella on the defense. So Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, one of the things that's going to end up happening with him is that some teams might pass on him because where do we put him becomes a big question. But when it comes down to the edge rusher spot, for me, it's Azeez Ojulari above Kwity Paye at this moment for me, as somebody that you could actually use in a couple of different spots if you needed to as well.
Yep, I like that pick.
Let's do it. I'm a big fan. All right, now we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who Christian Darrisaw, this would have been his floor for me. Like, talk about a quintessential Pittsburgh Steeler. I feel like it would be would have been right here as the absolute floor. Just wanted to go ahead and put this one out that Kwity Paye was the recommendation from the chat as opposed to Azeez Ojulari. So sorry, I went against you, Timothy. I apologize. All right, but we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Where you feel like they're going?
Let's take a look. Who are all the cornerbacks available still at this point? I don't think. I mean, there's Stokes. Is it too early to go with Asante Samuel Jr.? I mean, we've seen Asante Samuel Jr. creep into the first round on several mock drafts. And let's not forget that we're also coming off of the season where guys like Damon Arnett, AJ Terrell, those guys crept into the first round last year. When teams like cornerbacks, they'll draft their cornerbacks. Well, and Pittsburgh also needs some O-line help too, because they've had several retirements as well. You got Big Ben and his, archaic nature. He's back. I don't know who's the next available offensive tackle. Sam Cosmi. Yes, Cosmi's there.
Good. Liam Eichenberg is there too. Dylan Radins is somebody that I watched at the Senior Bowl. I feel like he's first round talent. He lacks a little bit of the arm length. I'm not a huge fan of the arm length conversation when it comes to offensive linemen, but he does have some of those question marks. But I mean, Liam Eichenberg, Dylan Radins for me in this range do make sense.
Who do you feel like, and it's just hard to say to put on this on the rookie, but who do you think can maybe hold their own the best against Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney now?
Oof.
To be honest with you, we talk about athleticism. You're going to have that guy. Samuel Cosmi, out of those three offensive linemen, make the most sense for me here for Pittsburgh.
Let's go ahead and do that. And I like his athleticism as well that he adds to the team. This is a team that is, we've talked about this before. As quarterbacks age, you build your offense a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. If there's any version of that ends up happening over the next couple of years, however long Big Ben continues to play, Samuel Cosmi and his mobility becomes a huge benefit for that.
Ben Roethlisberger and his mobility becomes a big disadvantage for them. So
that's true too.
They need to address that at some point in the future. But yes, I like that selection there. Now, Jacksonville, they have options here. They have good options. You go Trevor Lawrence. Do you want to reunite him with one of his teammates, Travis Etienne? I mean, there's even talk of Etienne dropping out of round number 1. So do you do that? Do you bring in a workhorse like Najee Harris, who in my opinion is the best back in this year's draft?
Right.
I mean, there's even offensive line talk here. This is a tough. I mean, for Jacksonville, I wonder what my man Tony Wiggins would be thinking right now.
Yeah, I know, right? I feel like, okay, so here's where I am. And everybody that's hanging out with us, thank you very much for being here. I know we've gone over our usual hour, but we're almost done here as we get through it. But this has been a lot of fun. As we go through here, I am very much one of the analytics. Let me push up my glasses, nerds. That doesn't like running backs in the first round. It's really, really risky. And so for me, honestly, the selection here that makes the most sense is actually Trevon Moehrig out of TCU, the safety. You got your quarterback over the offensive side. This guy is going to be the quarterback and leader of any defense that he steps foot on the field with. I really like this fit.
I do too, and Moehrig is one of those guys. I feel like he's going to be the alpha male defensive back player in terms of the backfield that they need, because you have, you're going to add a guy at the edge, the first line, and then at linebacker, you're going to obviously have some guys there. They already do. You need a guy in that back end of that secondary that's going to come up and thump people. And not only that, be able to cover, because we see the NFL translating to a too high safety look. You need a guy that can roll coverage. Moehrig is that guy. He's going to be that run stopper. He's going to be that pass cover guy. I like that selection there.
Big fan. Mike is a big fan of it as well. Let's go ahead and roll with it. Maybe a little bit of a curveball here. We're having some fun. Hey. All right, next we got to pick number 26 here and the Cleveland Browns on the clock. Our guy, Jeff Lloyd, I wonder where he would go here with the way that this board looks. But, I mean, defense seems to be the spot. Lots of injury concerns and, let me say, durability concerns, right, in terms of longevity and availability in the secondary. So there's a couple of different places you can go all along the defense here for the Cleveland Browns. Well,
and I'm thinking too, edge. I mean, with Jadeveon Clowney, you can bump him into defensive end too, which is nice. So if you want to add an edge rusher here, you're going to just be able to, mix and match different, your personnel and pass rushing situations. But to be honest with you, the next best player for them, I think, would be a linebacker. I think it would be a JOK, or even I love Xavier Collins. I think Xavier Collins obviously is going to be. I think he's going to be a round 1 player. I think he's going to be that back end there. But this is a tough kind of decision to make here.
Yeah. Do we feel like, because I feel like linebacker, I agree with you there. A linebacker and corner seem to make the most sense to me. If we look at, could be interior. Yeah. I mean, a guy that I really like as a first rounder is Christian Barmore, who is just an absolute demolition artist at the 3 tech position.
Yep.
As an interior pass rusher. I also really like that fit for them to continue to build the defensive line and put pressure. And then you can circle back around to corner in the second round or something like that. I don't know if JOK is a good fit for Cleveland's defense. Again, with that, hyper versatility that he has. So it would be Xavier Collins for me, or Jamin Davis at the linebacker position for them if they're looking for coverage guys. But Christian Barmore as an interior defensive lineman, I really like that curveball. And I do think he's a first rounder.
I do too, and I think it gives him that stout ability, right? Myles Garrett is you can't play him one-on-one regardless, but if you get a guy like Barmore who's going to play that 3-tech, he's going to command the attention of the center and guard, or even sometimes the tackle guard, depending on if they're blocking down. And then you have Jadeveon Clowney being free in that situation. You have a lot of opportunities to really get to the quarterback. What do you have to do? You're playing the division that has Lamar Jackson, that loves to run to the outside, that loves to run even sometimes on the inside. You got to have a player there, I think, that can maybe free up some of those guys like Garrett on the edge to be able to keep that contained. I'm okay with going with Barmore here.
Let's do it. I like Barmore. He plays a little bit of everything. He can generate pass rush for you, but he can also open opportunities for this continuously improving defensive line. So let's go Christian Barmore here. No question. This is JOK all the way.
Absolutely has to be.
This one feels like you talk about a fit for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
This is a Harbaugh's guy.
Yeah, this is exactly it. And our host of Locked On Ravens earlier today called it JOK is the MVP. So glad we're able to make it happen for him. This is just an easy one for me.
He's talking about Nikola Jokic because he's the Nuggets fan. Hey, Kevin, my man. Yes, he is the MVP. Make sure you guys listen to Locked On Nuggets.
Yeah, absolutely. Still available with the Saints coming up. Sorry, Caleb. Sorry,
Caleb. Bummed here.
He's like, no, we were so close.
So now the Saints are on the clock, Ross. This is your expertise here, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe JOK, if he dropped to the Saints, that would have been phenomenal, but this is still a really good linebacker class. Where are you leaning here for your Saints based on the available board that is right now?
Yeah, so for me, it's either any of the three levels of the defense. It's the edge rusher spot or anywhere on the defensive line. Even if Christian Barmore would have dropped here, it would have been really hard to talk me out of Barmore. Would have been really hard to talk me out of JOK or any second level player as well. Xavier Collins is here. We'll talk a little bit about him in just a moment. And then corner, of course, the Saints don't have a starting corner right now, at least from the public perception, right? We don't know what the organization actually feels about that scenario, but from the public perception, they don't have a cornerback opposite Marshawn Lattimore. So going with a first round corner makes a lot of sense. The only thing is that of the corners that are remaining, I feel like we're sort of, we're sort of hanging the balance here between first rounder and fringe first rounder going into the second round. And what really, how much is the separation between a guy like Eric Stokes, who has a year of production, a year of very good production, and Asante Samuel or an Elijah Molden or an Aaron Robinson or an Ife Melifonwu, who I absolutely love. So for me, I stay away from cornerback at this point, just based upon who's left on the board. Here's why I think Xavier Collins is the selection here. I'm going to pitch Xavier Collins. We talk about the New Orleans Saints and their love for players that this is funny. Sorry, I have to pull this up. Saints, Ravens have done this twice in a row, essentially. But the idea here being that Xavier Collins serves, this is a Saints defense that loves players that they call being multiple, obviously versatile. And so the idea being, Xavier Collins can play as a coverage linebacker, even at 6'4", 260. He can stop the run. He's a good run defender. He scrapes really well in terms of evading blocks and working laterally from one side to the other. And on third down, you can put his hand in the dirt, move Cam Jordan inside, and then he becomes a pass rusher for you. This to me feels like Xavier Collins.
Hey, you don't have to sell me. That's appealing. I mean, Xavier Collins, in my opinion, was one of those players I was hoping was going to be available early on in round 2, so maybe Denver can go out and get him. But I don't think he's going to be there. I think that's a good fit, right? And if you can bump Cam Jordan down, I mean, you give your defense the best package possible of getting to the quarterback, and especially against a team like Tampa Bay and Tom Brady and them, you have to be able to do that. And I think that, Collins gives you that versatility to be dynamic defensively. And I think despite all the changes that the Saints have endured this offseason, I think it gives them that, especially with you lose Quan Alexander, obviously they released him. So I think that Collins is the guy you get long-term, and maybe you can get some really good production out of him.
Let's do it. We'll go with Xavier Collins here, and then we'll move forward with the Green Bay Packers. Trevon Moehrig would have been a really good spot here. There's a lot of different ways that they could actually go here. I mean, Eric Stokes makes some sense. Actually, they're pretty okay at corner. They're better than okay at corner.
Yeah.
I think they could really go a lot of different routes here. Elijah Moore, perhaps, give them some speed over on offense. There's also Kadarius Toney and Terrace Marshall. Can we give Aaron Rodgers a weapon?
No, Green Bay doesn't want to. Aaron Rodgers is at the point, he's like, you know what? I'm pretty comfortable doing this Jeopardy thing. He's really damn good at it, by the way. Really love what he's bringing to the table. But they do need to add, I think, some wide receiver talent here. Are they going to finally give Aaron Rodgers a first-round talent at a skill player position? I will say last year was Jordan Love, but if they're going to start trying to execute the transition plan, I mean, do they add a wide receiver here? I mean, that to me, that's what I worry about.
Yeah, that's very true. I think, look, I look at wide receiver for them with the way that this board has fallen.
Yeah.
Because whether it's for Aaron Rodgers or whether it's for post-transition at the quarterback position, I would think that they would want to give somebody a weapon at some point. And so I go with either, I feel like Terrace Marshall fits best in terms of what it is that they're looking for or what it is that offense likes. But Elijah Moore as the speed option as a Z flanker working opposite Devontae Adams at X. I mean, that's really appealing too. Kadarius Toney's ability to do literally anything you want him to do on offense also makes a lot of sense as well. Feels very Randall Cobb-ish, if that makes sense.
Oh, you reunite Rodgers with a Randall Cobb-like prospect. That's good. I mean, I'm okay. I think wide receiver is the pick here. I think between Toney and Moore, I think those are the ones you really have to take a look at. I like Moore because you give him that speed factor. You get a guy you can line up in the slot. And how many teams are going to focus on double teaming or bracket covering Devontae Adams? That's a guy that can come free. Rodgers had guys like obviously Alan Lazard, has been able to come up big. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has come up big for them as well. But they need a guy that can take the top off of a defense. And I think Elijah Moore's probably that best fit. But then again, Kadarius Toney can do the same thing. So them Florida wide receivers are studs. I mean,
they really are. They really are.
So
I'm all about going with Elijah Moore. I like your additional context of him being able to work in the slot as well, which I do think Kadarius Toney can do. But at some point, you have to worry about too many things. And so with that being the case, I like the idea of Elijah Moore here and his complement to Devontae Adams.
I'm with it.
Let's do it. And real quick, Luke, we're going to recap the draft here in just a moment as we wrap up the first round before we wrap up today's episode. So stay tuned. We got you. We promise. Pick number 30, Buffalo Bills are on the clock. This also feels like a potential trade out of the first round situation. Pick up some additional selections, give somebody a fifth-year option. If I'm the New Orleans Saints, I'm trying to get back in and grab like an Eric Stokes or a Kadarius Toney or a Terrace Marshall who's still here. But in terms of what the needs are for this team, you can look at Kwity Paye probably making a lot of sense. Or another edge rusher that isn't at the top here, but that I like a lot is Joe Tryon out of Washington.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at Buffalo, okay, you're playing that division. New England, they're reloading a little bit. You have Miami. They're trying to do their best. Miami went with an edge rusher in this year's draft, in our mock draft. Where does it stand? I mean, they brought a lot of guys back. I mean, Buffalo defensively, a lot of those guys took a little bit of a pay restructure in order to come back on team-friendly deals. Defensively, they're really damn good as is. Who's going to make them even better? Now, when I watched them in the playoffs last year, the one thing that stood out to me, they had a hard time getting after the quarterback. They really did. And that was an issue. So I feel like edge rusher is the way to go here for them. They need a guy that can do that. They didn't have that last year. I don't know who to go with here, though. I mean, Kwity Paye is one of those guys, but Joe Tryon, as you mentioned.
Yeah, they're both very good. Don't get me wrong. We'll go ahead and go with Kwity Paye, best available here, probably the more known commodity. We'll come back around to Joe Tryon, though, I feel like here in a moment. So I
could already see the marketing things that they have every time that Paye hits the quarterback. They're going to say pay dirt. I mean, that's
payday, like what it is. Cash falling down sell the jerseys, baby, sell the jerseys.
I love it.
So now we get to pick number 31 and the Super Bowl runner-up Kansas City Chiefs. Could be another trade-out situation here, but offensive tackle, wide receiver, linebacker, all being possible options for them. Kadarius Toney would be an incredible addition to that offense. Landon Dickerson makes sense there as well. Or actually, excuse me, not Landon Dickerson. Liam Eichenberg makes sense there as well as Dylan Radins. For me, I'm going offensive line, and I've got Dylan Radins above Liam Eichenberg on my board.
I'm kind of split here because they do have Lucas Niang. He's returning. True. He's essentially a rookie this year. They did re-sign Mike Remmers. But they do need a guy because Remmers, look, Remmers should never play in another Super Bowl. He struggles against really good pass rushers, Von Miller and then Shaquille Barrett. So to be honest with you, I think here for Kansas City, where I'm at, I would more so look at linebacker. I feel like they need some help on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that Jamin Davis is probably the best available option for them.
Yeah.
And Jamin Davis or Spagnuolo,
Yeah, Jamin Davis or Nick Bolton both actually make a lot of sense to Kansas City. I'm all about that. Jamin Davis is more of a pure coverage linebacker, and Nick Bolton is a very good run stopper and tackler who can play in coverage. Because of how much Kansas City scores points, I feel like Jamin Davis and giving you coverage in the middle of the field is a little bit more dire.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I am, especially in Steve Spagnuolo's defensive scheme.
True. Yeah.
We saw Kansas City struggle with that in the Super Bowl too. So I think he makes the most sense here. But oh man, I was going to say if they didn't re-sign Giovanni Bernard, they would probably have went with one of these tailbacks here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it shifts a little bit. We have the edge rusher conversation here for them. That feels like the only spot really to go for these guys. I mean, I don't know what to do.
That's what David was talking about too.
Yeah, so let's just look at edge because I couldn't imagine where to do it unless you just want to build on a strength, which good teams build on strength. Don't get me wrong, but if you want to replace some of that pass rushing opportunity, then I think we go with this is where I feel like Joe Tryon enters the chat for me.
I think it's between Joe Tryon and Jason Owe, right? And because Jason Owe, his athletic testing numbers when he ran, I mean, he's got speed for days. He tested really, and he's a raw prospect. So, and I also think too, like I'm going with the marketing side of things here, Ross. But anytime he gets a sack on the quarterback or knocks a pass down at the line of scrimmage, you're going to say, Jason, no way. Sell the jersey.
How can I pass that up? The only one that I also like is Joe, stop trying. Because you ain't going nowhere.
See, there are so many opportunities here. I think between the most marketable names, it's between these two players. I mean, does anybody in the chat want to kind of beat the tiebreaker here between Tryon and Owe?
I mean, Mike just jumped in and said that he thinks that Owe makes a ton of sense. We'll give it another little bit, see if anybody else wants to jump in. But so far, it's 2 for Owe versus 1 for Tryon. So I'm all about going Owe here so far.
Let's see. We'll give it a couple of seconds. If nothing pops up, we'll just make the selection here. But Tampa Bay, regardless, I think they're going to get a pretty good player here out of them. And we know that Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles, they can really transform their defense with the guy they feel like they can replace and plug in. And you factor in Shaq Barrett. Shaq is a combination of that strength and that speed pass rush. And then Owe would be your legitimate speed rush guy. I mean, his first move, especially off the line of scrimmage, the shoulder lean, he's going to obviously carry that over, gives them an advantage.
Yeah. All right. Looks like we're going Jason Owe here, which I think is a great selection for them. So here we go. Here we go. We get a quick look at the first 8 selections here. Want to make sure that we shout out Luke Walsh, who was asking about who the 49ers drafted. We took Justin Fields here with very little question. I don't even think we said Mac Jones's name while we were on the board there. So that's our first 8. A couple of highlights, of course, being Cincinnati going with Penei Sewell as opposed to going with the wide receiver. Jalen Waddle actually coming off the board first at wide receiver, even though I think we both agree Jamar Chase is the best wide receiver off the board, but we have to look at fit. Denver taking Trey Lance. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, just the fact that the Broncos are unsure about Drew Lock. They hope he can make that, the next step this upcoming season. But for the Broncos, with Lance being available, it's hard for them to pass up, especially if Drew Lock is not the guy. It brings in quarterback competition and training camp. It's going to be fun, man. I'm excited to be there.
Absolutely. Glad Luke is excited about his selection. And we got another really good point here from Mike, too, about thinking about post JPP, post these other guys as well. So you end up getting a guy for the future with Jason Owe. Let's go ahead and see Devonta Smith going to the Philadelphia Eagles, Micah Parsons to the Giants, J.C. Horn to the Vikings. I'm sure Luke Braun's doing a little dance real quick. Mac Jones falling to 15 to the New England Patriots. Then we get to our guys, Carolina Panthers, Caleb Farley. We talked about it earlier. We're able to make it happen for him. Jalen Phillips staying in Miami. Christian Darrisaw going to look great in that jersey on that field. Lauren Cox getting some help over on the defensive side, our host of Locked On Bears. I'm sure he's excited about Greg Newsome there and getting him out of Northwestern too. So, pretty local. That's pretty dope. And then we've got Rashad Bateman heading to the Tennessee Titans.
Great pick.
Yeah, I think so too. And then as we roll along here, Azeez Ojulari heading over to the Jets. The Jacksonville Jaguars go quarterback on offense, quarterback on defense, adding Trevon Moehrig. Christian Barmore, one of our guys, Cleveland Browns first rounder. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah going to the Ravens. No fret for Saints fans, though. We still get the linebacker in Xavier Collins, who can do a little bit of thing within that front seven. And then Elijah Moore being a big old weapon going to the Green Bay Packers. Kwity Paye helping out in the pass rush. Jamin Davis, the Kansas City Chiefs, correcting a little bit of the defense that they needed in the Super Bowl. And then Tampa Bay adding to their Super Bowl roster with Jason Owe to close it out.
Boom. That's a good draft. And obviously want to thank everyone in the chat that participated along, shared their thoughts. We did factor in your thoughts into maybe some of our decision making as well. So thank you for being influential in the chat here.